Hi, my name is Suzanne Wagner, and I am one of the co-teachers of a series of workshops that are called The Shades of Intimacy with Jason Smith, Jenny Stanchfield, and myself, Suzanne Wagner. Many years ago, I started teaching a relationships workshop probably about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, started teaching a relationship workshop because I found that as a professional psychic, so many relationships actually came in and they were trying to understand how to reconnect or rekindle the passion that is in their love life. You find in relationship that people, they love each other and they get so busy and caught up in the day-to-day things and the stresses that they forget to actually connect in those deep ways that are incredibly fulfilling and that are the meaning of marriage and partnership and long-term commitment. As I evolved in this process, it's like I came across with my friends Jenny Stanchfield and Jason Smith, who are a couple. They're a married couple. And they too had been on that journey of, researching all the different tools and traditions. What we've done in the Shades of Intimacy workshop is we've kind of joined forces. I started out as a professional ballet dancer, and the value for me of that in intimacy and partnership was that I got really comfortable in changing roles or trying on different characters or different flavors of energy. I had to do that on stage. And what I found when I did that was that I learned about a whole different way of thinking or a different mindset or a different way of perceiving my reality. And I found that there were certain characters or archetypes within myself that I had huge resistance to, that I was afraid of showing or expressing. So I got comfortable in doing that with ballet, and I had started to be a massage therapist and a body worker and a professional psychic and an author and a teacher. And what I noticed out in the real world is that most of us get so identified with the I. They get identified with, this is who I am, and that definition has been defined by our parents. So our parents would say, you're a good girl, and so bad girl goes over here. Well, we have all these stereotypes of what that might be. So in my experience, good girl was, kind and loving and gentle and considerate. And my bad girl was outspoken and a woman who had her own business and had her own corporation and was direct and straightforward. And so those things that had been labeled as bad obviously were not necessarily bad, but they had kind of gotten stuffed in the shadow. They had kind of gotten stuffed in my body. What you find, and the reason that we call this workshop The Shades of Intimacy, is that it's about reconnecting or rediscovering the archetypes within yourself that are natural archetypes. They've just been suppressed because of a belief or what somebody told you when you were a child or how you thought you were supposed to be. In intimacy, we all have a stereotype, and mine is the classic girl stereotype that a woman is supposed to be loving and kind and nurturing, and that the other flavors, such as hot and sexy or bad girl or dominatrix, or some of these other flavors, were labeled as dark or bad. What that does in a woman's body is it creates blocks in the lower chakras. I think as a society, we choose to live from our heart chakra up. And so I like to think of it as a triangle that's going from the heart chakra this way and then over the top of your head. But there's actually a lower triangle which goes from your heart chakra down. And especially in life, what makes life fun are edges. What makes life fun are when you consciously, safely, and constructively lean into the edge, and you don't lose presence, you don't lose heart connection, but you stay with that and you learn to blend energy. So what happens to a lot of people, and what happened to me, and what I learned through meditation, was that I would be doing Vipassana meditation. And so you're, channeling energy down through your different chakras. And I would get to my third chakra and I would kind of gap out. I would pop out. And what I would notice was that my energy was comfortable going down here. And when it got to my solar plexus, it would jump over that chakra and then go down to my lower chakras. And then the reverse would happen, that I would bring the energy up and it would jump over my third chakra and it would continue up. What that does is it creates you not moving through the emotions, because the third chakra is emotional, the emotions and the feelings that create joy. So in each of us, we have a parental paradigm. And the parental paradigm that I was raised in was that, you know, you're honest, you're authentic, you're truthful, you're straightforward, you're never mean, you're never harsh, you don't get out of control, you maintain a sense of propriety. So what do you do then with anger or frustration or resentment and all these other emotions? Well, what I did, which is what most people do, is they suppress them. And what we are trying to do in the Shades of Intimacy is to create a healthy container that allows you to move through that. And in doing that, what we first and foremost try to do is to show you how to create a sacred sexual space. That ritual is really good at supporting you in going into a sexual situation where you can discuss with your partner, I want to try this, or I want to try that, or I want to spend 15 or 20 minutes working on this particular thing. And then you do it as a ritual of deepening and intimacy rather than just randomly doing sex, which is fun and it's gratifying in the short term, but in the long term, it doesn't really fulfill the soul. So in the Taoist tradition, they actually say that sex is like champagne bubbles at the bottom of a glass. And when you stimulate sexual energy, those bubbles rise up and they will hit the blocks in the chakras wherever those blocks are. So if they rise up and you have something you're not saying, you block it. And then what happens is you either kill the sexual energy or suppress the sexual energy, or you have to let the sexual energy move through and it will bring up whatever is blocking. So think of it like you have a light in your essence. And then there's layers and layers and layers of stuff that we get on top of those that stop us from expressing our authentic self. Well, when you stimulate sexual energy, which is life force energy, it's going to push up against anything you have been in denial of or anything you're in resistance to, which is why sexuality is a very powerful healing tool in your intimate partnership, because you have to feel very, very safe in your partnership in order to open up these deeper emotional places. But at the same time, I think each of us needs to be trained on how to stay present with our intimate partnership. Like, how do we do that? And from years of doing white tantric yoga, because I was a Kundalini yoga instructor, and learning those tools that are related to eye contact and breathing, and doing the classes that I've done related to Tantra, and really diving into what is Tantra. And Tantra is really a weaving of life force energy through breath, sound, and movement. So what we try to do in the workshop is we, first of all, try and start with the basics. It's very important to learn to breathe with your partner, because if you can't breathe with your partner, you're actually kind of out of sync. You're out of flow. You don't feel safe because you're not actually moving with the other person, or they're not moving with you. And if they're not moving with you, then there's this question, especially for the feminine, about can you actually feel me? And if you can feel me, I'm going to open up more and I'm going to trust you. But if you can't feel me, then you're just sort of using me for your own pleasure, and you're just, doing what you want, and you're not really in that connective flow with me. So we try and do breathing exercises for that, but we also try to do exercises that help strengthen and help you understand the polarities between masculine and feminine. Because we all have masculine and feminine parts, and it's good if you have a partnership that if I'm the woman, I'm maybe more dominant, and but you're going to then attract a man that maybe has more of a feminine side that wants to cook and clean and stuff, and that will totally work because it still creates a polarity. So we talk about polarity and what kind of polarities you have, and almost always you're in a relationship that reflects perfectly the polarity of yourself in reverse. But sometimes that's going to upset you because the part that you deny within yourself is oftentimes reflected in the other person. So in the game of intimacy, trying on a different energy, archetype, flavor, flow is incredibly enlightening when you just step out of yourself and your old habits and your old ways of doing things, and you step into, okay, I'm going to try, a different flavor, such as, one of the most powerful flavors I tried on years ago was to be my mother. And as a woman, how many of us resist being like our parents? And so there's this incredible advantage when you are willing to kind of take an honest look at yourself and go, where am I actually afraid to go? What would it be like if I pretended to be my mom for a second when I was in a dance of intimacy with my partnership? And actually what I learned was a lot about my mother. I actually learned a lot about my parents' intimacy and the passion that they had between them that created me. And it also made me seriously look at my judgments that I have around other people. And that is the value here. When you try on a flavor that's not familiar or is not comfortable, and you're doing it in the safety of a container with your intimate partnership because you've created a sacred sexual space, what happens is that not only do you dispel a tremendous amount of energy that you've been using to suppress or deny an archetype, but you also get incredible enlightenment and awareness at the same time. You learn about other people. In a Western culture, we have so much about this individual self. It's like, it's all about me. It's about what I want. And it's actually incredibly loving to be able to sit back and feel into a very different energy field and be open to learning the lessons that are inherent in the gifts of that energetic flow. So in the Shades of Intimacy, why we call it Shades of Intimacy is not because we're doing like 50 Shades of Gray or something like this. We're not doing this. Though there are people that is the shade they want to explore, and that is the shade that they want to have as a flavor, though that's not the flavor we're going to be bringing up in our workshop. But we try and give you different ideas or archetypes, and those ideas are based on the group of people that show up in the room, and what we do is based on what you guys are looking for and what you need. What we love is when somebody says, this is what's going on in our partnership, this is where we're stuck, this is what's not working, help. And we love that because then it's like, great. This is what we would create if we were having that dynamic in our own relationship, in our own intimacy. This is what we would try on. This is what how we would lean into that edge. And it's incredible how much energy you can use to suppress your sexuality. It takes a huge amount of energy because you are life force itself. One of the weaknesses that I find in polarizing just in the direction of meditation, which I have done for years, I did for years. I was a big meditator. I did Vipassana. I did a lot of TM. I did all sorts of meditation, is that you actually have life force energy. And when you get really still, suddenly you start to notice that, and that's what happened to me. I was doing these long, month-long Vipassana meditation courses, and I'm suddenly like, oh my gosh, I have so much life force energy, sexual energy. What am I going to do with it? And what I recognized was that for myself, I was using all of my sexual energy transmitted through life force energy into gifting energy to my clients with my work, which is completely fine and it's totally valid, but that I was depleting my energy so much and exhausting myself because I was actually doing a denial-based response that at the end of the day, I'm totally, completely exhausted. Now, I can still give that energy completely, 100% to my clients, but if I don't deny my sexual energy and I allow those chakras to be open and moving and flowing and move up through my heart, they'll strengthen my heart, they strengthen my voice, they strengthen my mind, and suddenly I'm more present, I'm less resentful, I feel more alive, I feel more connected, I don't feel distracted. And what happens is people feel much more connected to me as I'm talking, because I'm fully in my body. I think as a culture, we have gone to school and we've trained all of our children to look at the mind and how valuable the mind is, and memory and cognition and words. And yes, those things are all incredibly important. But notice, as a society, we still value sports and people who have great athletic prowess. And what I found for myself was that in my family dynamic, it wasn't safe to express anger. And so I'm a retired professional ballet dancer, and I would jump higher with it, or I would pirouette faster, or I would channel all that energy through my physical body, which was a way of dispersing the energy, because life force energy can be incredibly uncomfortable if you have not allowed your container to grow and expand and accommodate how much energy you have. I think this is so incredibly important, because when you sit in the presence of a powerful teacher or a guru, what you discover is that you're actually inside their aura. Their aura is so expanded beyond their body that some of the great teachers, it's at the horizon. So people love to go to ashrams, because when you're in the ashram, you're in the guru's energy field. And obviously things become really clear and calm and conscious when you're enveloped in the guru's energy field. What we want to do is to start in our small way through this workshop of Shades of Intimacy to expand your own life force energy. And as you expand that, you also connect and include that energy with your partnership. And so you and your partnership become a we rather than two me's operating independently. And that takes practice. I mean, this isn't something that you learn quickly. What we do in the workshops is we give you these opportunities to dive in. And it's amazing when we teach the workshop how people go, oh my gosh, I'm so incredibly exhausted. But it's like any muscle that you haven't been using. It's like to stay fully present with emotional expression and to give permission for another person to have a full experience through breath and through eye contact and through movement is incredibly profound, but it's also amazingly enriching and enlivening. Jason Smith is an amazing Aries male, big tall guy, super macho kind of guy. So he's not a Eckhart Tolle super metaphysical, light polarized person. It's a very masculine man, and so he's essential in the mix of this experience, because we really need to the men to be taught by men. I've spent years, I spent 15, 20 years teaching my relationships workshop, modifying it. But what I found was I'm a woman, and so men don't really want to hear things from me per se, but they need to hear it from another man, because a male perspective is a male perspective. And as much as I understand masculine languaging and how strong of a masculine shell I might have because I run companies, it's just not the same with men. And what is so transformational in the Shades of Intimacy class is that the men get to work with Jason, and they get to go outside and they get to do masculine exercises, and they're surrounded by other men supporting them in this process. And that's so powerful for men. It's so empowering for men. And then at the same time men are doing that, Jenny and I are actually working with the women, and we are talking to the women and tracking the women and giving the women exercises that support their feminine flow. And once again, women are supported by other women. I really find that women are really informed deeply, bodily, by observing and listening to other women. I've had some of the greatest lessons in my life because of women in my life that have taught me things. And it's sort of like if I feel safe with a particular woman and she is talking to me about something very scary for me, and I feel the congruency in her body as she's speaking, it'll give me the courage to try something out in my own way. And it gives me permission to express my feelings, because with women, women are never afraid of another woman's emotions. Just in general, I mean, every woman looks at another woman and goes, wow, I totally know what you're going for, and I totally know where you're at, and I want to support you in this. And so that's why women coming together with women is so important. And Jason teaches a men's modern warrior workshop, which is exclusively for the men. And then Jenny and I teach a feminine embodiment practice, which is exclusively for women. And what's so important about our workshops is that we tailor them based on the people that come. We both have learned tremendous things for many years, and we have gone to lots of workshops and read lots of books and have actively practiced sexual language and tantric practices and breathing practices from so many methods and modalities. I mean, it was really funny. I was at the last workshop with Jason and Jenny, and they were talking about doing a breathing exercise. And I said, well, which one? Which breathing exercise are we doing? And they were like, okay, well, which ones are you talking about? And so, because I've studied so many different breathing techniques and I'm a certified rebirther, and you know, I was doing all this stuff in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, that there's so many different versions, and I was like, okay, well, this one is going to do this and this one is going to do that, and you know, which one are you trying to stimulate and what kind of energies are you trying to get to flow? And so, you know, it's this incredible process of like, okay, this group where they're at probably needs this breath pattern to open up this particular door. And so if you come to the workshop, it changes all the time. I mean, it changes all the time and it shifts all the time. But what's even more important about our workshop is that this is supposed to be play. This is supposed to be fun. And it's always interesting that you have men come in and they're like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? Like, you know, okay, I'm coming, I'm dragging myself here. Okay, I'll be here because I love my partner so much. And then when they get into it, they're like, wow, I had no idea that we could even go here, and we could go there safely, consciously, and constructively in a practice of breath, sound, and movement. And it's not even sexual, but it is sexual, because what is sexuality is energy. And everyone should know that you can be in a sexual setting, and if your energy is not 100% in that place of wanting to open in that sexual place, you really can't have orgasms, or the energy sort of dies, or all sorts of things happen. And so what creates that connection is sexual energy. And that energy is also in a cosmic flow above your body. So many years ago, I experienced something called a cosmic orgasm, which was because of energy, like that breathing and that connecting to energy. And I have a dear friend of mine that is a monk, and you know, I said, well, you're celibate, you know, how do you deal with this? And he says, well, I embody, you know, when I feel that energy, I embody the yap yum, which is a man and a woman in an embrace, with him holding her in his lap and then breathing together. And there's this divine connection. So sexuality is physical, but where most people are very weak is in the energetic muscles of sexuality. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to help you see the patterns of energy, how you can switch up the energies, the value of switching up the energies, and where you then allow yourself to have an experience with your intimate partner, and how that opens up the love, that opens up the understanding and trust, and it stops this kind of negative tussling that happens between two partners. And so we give a tremendous amount of information, but first and foremost, we like to give people experiences that are unique to their partnership, you know, that they're working with their partner. But then we also switch it up, and we actually will have you work with a different person, you know, just because Sometimes certain issues are so deeply personal that you can get very, very triggered by your partner that's there, or you won't feel safe to really express an emotion that maybe has come up before in a relationship but gotten blocked. And so it's almost easier to try something out with a different person. Many years ago, I was doing some relationships workshops, and I got probably three of the most powerful pieces in my life from men that I did work with in a relationship workshop. They gave me a piece of feedback that no man had ever told me, but was 100% on and completely accurate. And the reason that works is because they're not attached. I'm not their partner. It doesn't matter what happens. It only matters that, they feel in this moment that they need to share that. And that then helped me bring that awareness back into my partnership. And I would say, gosh, this is what this guy told me. And goes, oh yeah, you do that. I'm like, wow, I never knew that I did that. So what also happens with the shades of intimacy and what we are doing is that we are trying to create tribes of energy that are conscious people that want to come together to create powerful conscious sexual expression in their intimate partnership. And I believe that that in turn heals the planet and heals the world. So Jenny and I, with my team, we have created something called the Wild Women Symposium with Jackie Brinkerhoff, Lene Staker, and Tanya Nielsen. And we have a symposium that happens twice a year, usually in the spring and the fall, that is exclusively for women, where they get to try on a lot of different types of classes and workshops. And then Jason is doing this Men's Modern Warrior, where he supports the men in all the different things that will really help a man get more grounded, more enlivened, more consciously aware of his relationship, how to work with that, and to get feedback from other men. So we are trying to create a global community of conscious people who are responsible with their sexual energy and recognize when their energy might be off, and they learn skills to get their energy back to center. So that's what the Shades of Intimacy workshop is all about. And I hope that this helps a little bit. But it's really a workshop you have to experience to completely get. And I hope that some of the people who have taken our workshops will make comments on this video, so that if they choose, they can share what they got out of it, and how that enhanced and helped their partnership. Thanks for listening.